Did you normally help girl children who are in difficult conditions, such as early marriage and forced marriage?
What are the ideas the AU has to eliminate practices that harm children?
What are you, the government, doing to ensure that our voices are heard?
What has African Union done to ensure well-being of children, and what has changed?
Is there any plan to help kids who are disabled and unfortunate kids who are living on the street?
There's also child abuse in urban areas. For example, in schools, teachers are allowed to hit their students. What is the AU doing to prevent that?
How can children participate in the elimination of harmful practices affecting them?
I'm humbled to stand before you today as we commemorate the Day of the African Child. I am happy that this day is being remembered in Africa under the theme, Eliminating Social and Cultural Practices Affecting Children, Our Collective Responsibility. This is because of the many problems children are facing in Africa today. As we may all be aware, this day reminds us of the children in South Africa that were killed as they protested against the poor quality of education they were receiving then. To our leaders, this day calls for fresh commitment towards protecting the rights of children.
We are reminded that the continent's children are still not out of the woods. They continue to endure violence, humiliation, and other attendant ills perpetrated by and in the interest of the few, in the name of cruel old age traditions that have lost meaning and relevance. We are also reminded to wake up and ensure that necessary and urgent steps are taken to eradicate injurious violence-oriented and harmful socio-cultural practices against the continent's children. In moving against such evils of society, opposition is bound to rise to slow our pace and to even prevent us from reaching our goals.
These practices are indeed harmful. They obviously involve different forms of violence against children: physical violence, sexual violence, mental violence, emotional violence. And it is self-evident that they constitute an unacceptable violation of human dignity and integrity. That there is really no justification for their continuation, yet they persist. In fact, they can be widespread, socially condoned, culturally acceptable, and a harsh reality for millions of children, yet often underreported and unrecorded.
These harmful and violent practices have led to emotional, physical, and mental scars to children, and in many instances, they've led to eventual death of many African children as they are unable to defend themselves.
Allow me to use this occasion to inform you that the African Union is, to inform you what the African Union is doing in this regard. We have committed ourselves to protect the human rights of women, girls, and children, to promote positive cultural values, and to celebrate the fight against harmful traditional practices. For this year's celebrations, 5 areas of concern and intervention have been identified. First, preventing and or addressing violence against children, harmonization of laws, emphasis on institution frameworks, collaboration between various stakeholders, and the need for data collection and research. These measures must go in tandem with efforts of governments which are expected to pay more attention to additional areas and to their specific institutions of particular importance to combat harmful practices in compliance with the African Children's Charter and other relevant instruments.
FGMC, as we knew, is tenacious. You can't end it overnight. We estimate that 120 million girls and women alive today have already been cut, and 30 million girls that have not yet been cut but that are alive today are at risk of being cut in the next 10 years if current trends continue. We see that female genital cutting is most difficult to address where there is high prevalence, where almost everybody is cutting. But we do see that particularly in countries with moderate prevalence or lower prevalence, there is a decline. 17 of 29 countries have declined. Most of them are in the moderate or low prevalence categories. Many people, even though the cutting is still happening, do not support the practice. This is really crucial. Often people's personal support, their personal opinion, is that they would like to stop, but they still feel the social pressure and they continue. So the programmatic and policy implication that's very strong here, we have to find better ways to make evident that the support for the practices have been eroding. And this is true for female genital cutting, it's true for child marriage, it's true for many of the other traditional or historical practices that are harmful, that there's still a sense of social pressure to perform them, and yet in fact people don't really want to do it anymore.
While law reform and child-friendly policies are extremely important, they are not sufficient and of themselves in order to guarantee children a life free from harmful practices. The effective implementation and enforcement of laws and policies is what would add value to children's lives. As a result, a number of institutional frameworks are necessary in order to prevent, aid, or address harmful practices. For instance, it is important for states to develop a multifaceted and systematic framework to respond to violence against children that is integrated into national planning processes. Once individuals and subsequently a whole or significant part of the community realize that they are better off collectively abandoning a harmful practice, the efforts towards complete abandonment appears to be within reach. We need to develop laws, policies, and programs that encourage the rapid, mass, and permanent abandonment of harmful practices across a wide range of communities in Africa.
We call for the engagement of strategic stakeholders, including community and religious leaders, support to families to exercise their protective role, empowerment of children to support the prevention and abandonment of harmful practices, and the strengthening of international, regional, and bilateral cooperation to promote joint awareness and sensitization efforts, and to jointly identify and build upon good practices in legislation, in policy development, and in practical action.
UNICEF uses this opportunity to call for collective collaboration, coordinated actions, review of legislative reform, but ensure that they are accompanied by enforcement measures that address social norms, that would engage change in behavior, and of course, social mobilization. There is a need to understand further the historical background of those practices. There is a need to document, to engage research, and there is a need to put in place monitoring mechanism based on very specific collection of data and statistics, and have those indicators as part of the statistic national and international systems.
Real change can only happen when families, communities, tradition and religious leaders and children themselves take an active part in social change and implementation efforts. Awareness raising, public debates and social mobilization play an indispensable role in this process. They help to preserve practices that have a positive impact on children's protection, and they work towards the prevention and abandonment of those practices that compromise the human rights of children. Let us therefore seize this occasion of the Day of the African Child to join hands and make harmful practices against children part of a very long distant past.
We, the children, presenting Egypt, Kenya, Cameroon, the Gambia, Ethiopia, Mozambique and Zambia, on behalf of other children in Africa, as well as other participants attending the commemoration of the 23rd Day of African Child on 14 June 2013 in Addis Ababa. Hereby strongly adds AU member states, partners, CSOs, UN agencies, region economic commissions, international and regional organizations, parliaments, the Maiden, to advocate and promote the total elimination and abandonment of harmful social and cultural practices in Africa.
We would like authorities to stop speeches and promises because it is time to act for the future.
Everything for us is nothing for us without us. Together for a fit Africa for children free of harmful social and cultural practices affecting children.
We in the African Union Commission have been working very hard with partners to make sure that we improve the lives of children. We strongly believe that children should be in school, they should not be brides. They shouldn't be getting married, at the age of 8, 9, 12, as is the case at the moment. So I think it is time we all put our act together and try to see if we can make a change. It is my hope that by next year when we come back, we should have better results and we should hear a few more new initiatives towards curbing down this problem that still prevails.
Indeed, it is time for us, our parents, and leaders to take action against harmful practices affecting children in Africa today. Eliminating these will help us grow up to be responsible children and take over from our parents in future. I want to urge my fellow children not to keep quiet about the wrong things happening in our communities, including our homes sometimes. We need to speak out and talk with our leaders until our issues are addressed.
I believe and I expect these elders, our leaders, to come together, work hand in glove to eliminate these harmful and social cultural practices. I thank you.